Well, hello. It's 15 days until Christmas and just 10 days until Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. In previous video, I posted about some of my concerns with the fandom and bringing the fandom back together. Today, I'd like to share a game, Star Wars Episode 9 Bingo. And this is just a fun game. Put some ideas down of things you might see in the movie, and then when we go see the movie, see how many you get correct. Some of these are pretty easy with some of the leaks that we've had. Some of them are all but confirmed. Others, I'm just taking a wild shot and trying to put some risk out there. I don't want to make every space just a gimme space. Want some of them to be challenging and maybe not to have a perfect card, but just to see where it comes out. So looking at my card and where we start, the freebie space, the center space is Luke will be a cosmic force being, a force ghost. He will not come back to life. Now, my thought is that we'll likely see him in much of the same kind of presence that he had when he was a force projection in The Last Jedi. I think that he may have some physical attributes. He may be able to materialize things physically and certainly have some interaction with the physical world. Some leaks I've read have him doing as much, and I think this is a pretty easy given that Luke will be a cosmic force being. He will not come back to life. The first space I have up in B1 is that Force Ghost Anakin will appear. For me, this is a wish. I really want to see Anakin involved. In my mind, the Star Wars saga, the Skywalker saga, is primarily about Anakin, his development through there. We've not seen him at all in The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, other than the reference to Ben's grandfather as Darth Vader. I would like very much to see Anakin up here. My second one is Palpatine will reappear in some living form, not just a recording or a ghost. Again, this has been all but confirmed. I think it's a safe one. When I wrote this a couple months ago, there was a lot of speculation and conjecture about maybe he was just being a holocron, or one of his memories would be imbued into an object. I have thought for a long time that he will appear in some living form, and this actually ties back to reading of the Aftermath series and seeing that his contingency plan. And there was a nice clue in that book where the chess pieces are all falling down except two. And if you've read that book, you know what I'm talking about. And one of those is the Emperor's piece. And I believe that due to that book and that kind of hint, that we would see Palpatine come back in actual form. Me personally, I think it'll be in some clone body of his, and that it may be very much like we see Voldemort in Harry Potter. The third one in the first row, in one, is that Thrawn will appear. This is very unlikely. I don't see any indication that would happen and be complete fan service, but I would just love to see Thrawn make an appearance in the movie. It would just it would be fantastic. And this one came from reading the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn in the last few months, and some of the hints there that I believe will show up in Rise of Skywalker in some form. So moving on, G1, I have Luke will save Rey by using some Force ability, perhaps absorbing Force lightning from Palpatine, perhaps reviving her in some aspect, but I believe Luke will be a key figure central to the story and in saving Rey, that he will be the key there. O1, I have Rey will visit the world between worlds. This came from very early things that I had heard about different set pieces. and the descriptions of them, I think it's very unlikely that Rey will visit the world between worlds, but I think it's possible. So again, some of these are gimmies, some of them are way out there, and this is probably my biggest stretch, other than Thrawn appearing. Moving to the second row, B2 would be no Reylo romance. I think a lot of people get confused with romantic relationships or very close ties. And I harken back to the Lord of the Rings between Frodo and Samwise. They had a very, very intimate relationship, but yet it was not a romantic relationship. And some people confuse those emotions. Some people confuse those relationships. And I think people have been reading into the connection between Kylo and Rey, that it's will develop into a romantic relationship. And I absolutely love Girls with Sabers. They're the best. If you haven't watched them or subscribed to them, I would please encourage you to do so. They're enthusiastic about the Star Wars franchise and this sequels, and they're very much on the Reylo relationship, having a romantic relationship side, and they have very strong arguments for their positions, and it very well could work out that way. Just in my own personal view, I think that ship has sailed, and I think the ending scene in The Last Jedi, when she closes the door to the Millennium Falcon, is both a literal and figurative of her closing the door on Kylo. So I don't think there will be a romantic relationship, although the Reylo, as far as a relationship, that strong bind between them is undeniable, and it will continue into the Rise of Skywalker. I, too, Finn will not have a romance with Rose. I wrote this before I read the last novel, moving into the Rise of Skywalker, the follow-up after The Last Jedi. And in that book, it is all but confirmed this. The Poe asks Finn directly, what's the deal with you and Rose? And they say, well, they talked about it and there's nothing there. So I think this is a safe one. In 2, Snoke will not be revealed as being Plagueis. There is an obsession within the Star Wars fandom with Plagueis. He's a great character. The book that is now part of Legends is a very good book, and the mention of Palpatine of Plagueis in the prequels, the tragedy of Plagueis, Darth Plagueis the Wise, his mentor, his teacher. There's been an obsession with him since then. But to me, that feels too inside baseball, to use that term. That it's too fan service to the Star Wars community only. And if you're looking at what folks call the normies, just people who watch Star Wars movies and enjoy those for what they are, they maybe watch the movie one time. They love it, but they don't watch it over and over again, and they don't read into it further. Darth Plagueis, in one very short quote from the prequels, is not going to be something that they're going to remember, nor should they be expected to remember. And I don't think that there's any need to bring Plagueis into the saga again in any kind of relevance. So I do not think that Snoke was, is, or will be any embodiment of Plagueis. G2, Hux is a mole for the Resistance. This was a very, very early leak or rumor, and one that I remembered. It's not been spoken of recently, and there's no, from what I've seen in any of the trailers recently, there's not even any presence of Hux in those. I think that General Hux will be involved and that he will be a mole. O2, Kylo / Ben will sacrifice himself. This goes with the Bendemption idea that Kylo, it kind of follows in his grandfather's footsteps of Darth Vader sacrificing himself for his son and becoming Anakin again. And here the Bendemption idea is a similar vein. that Kylo would sacrifice himself for perhaps Rey, and that uh, his identity as Ben would be returned. So I'm not sure that that's what he would sacrifice himself for, or if he would sacrifice it for his mother. Not quite sure how that will go, but I do think that Ben will sacrifice himself. B3, moving to the next row, we'll see a scene with multiple Force ghosts. I think more than two, right? So we fully expect to see Yoda, fully expect to see Luke, very much hope to see Anakin, and I think there's a good chance that we might see all three of those in here, as well as perhaps some others. There's been some rumors. I don't want to go too far into that, but I truly hope that we see those three together, or at least Luke and Yoda. I3, the next one. Rey's parents will still be nobodies. Some of the latest rumors have her tied directly to Palpatine, perhaps as a granddaughter. I don't know that I think that she is a granddaughter. Do think that the connection to Rey is there, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. But I think that she is a product of Palpatine's contingency plan. I think it's something that happened after, obviously after Return of the Jedi, and it's something that has been going on for some time, and that Rey is a product of that, and that he claims her lineage through the work that he did. So, but that doesn't mean that her parents, her actual parents, the ones that she would see, like if you think of somebody who was adopted or somebody that was in vitro, may not be the actual child of that person, but that person is their parent. For all practical purposes, the one that birthed them, the one that raised them, the one that taught them and was there for them. The ones that Rey remembers dropping her off on Jakku, that's who she associates with her parents. Whether they are her true parents or not, I think those individuals that dropped her off on Jakku are still going to be nobodies from the Star Wars community. And as far as we're concerned, they're not going to be somebody from the extended universe that we already know. I think she's going to come from nobody from that standpoint. Skipping over the free space that we already covered, moving to G3. Poe will become the leader of the Resistance. At the end of The Last Jedi, we see everybody look back to Leia, and she said, "What are you looking at me for? Follow him." And I think that that was a bit of a trade-off, or handing of things off to say, Poe is your leader now, follow him. I don't think that that means that she's relinquished the entire Resistance to his leadership, just as she has elevated him back to a role of leadership. And I think by the end of the movie, he will become the leader of the Resistance, perhaps through Leia's death and inheriting it that way. We'll see. 03, Leia will go to Naboo, maybe be put to rest, or maybe just to try to capture some movement for the Resistance, going back to the place of her lineage. Her mother came from Naboo, was Queen of Naboo, and also a Senator of Naboo. I think it would be fantastic to see Leia travel back there alive and recruit the people from Naboo, or perhaps we'll see a death scene much like her mother's, where she is covered in flowers and carried off. I think that that might be a little too spot on. That might be a little too kind of morose. So I don't know that that would happen, but I would like to see her go back to Naboo. Moving to the next row, row 4, B4. Kylo will explore the unknown regions. We know that Palpatine was exploring the unknown regions. I believe that that's where the First Order's birth came from, the unknown regions. And I believe that's where Palpatine is now, in the unknown regions. And that Kylo is on a quest to as he said, finish the work that his grandfather started. And he's looking for the source of this power. He's looking for where is this coming from, and he's going to chase it down. So I think Kylo will explore the unknown regions in some way. I4, Rose will become a leader of some sort in the Resistance. I think Rose is going to be elevated to some sort of commander or general role, certainly from a logistics standpoint, and I think she'll be a central figure in the Resistance's planning and execution of their attack. In 4, this is again just dealing with some fan rumors and some complaints that people have. I believe Lando will not die. We may believe at some point that he did, but I don't think that he will. I think Disney and Lucasfilm have learned their lesson. I don't think that they want to treat any of the legacy characters in a way that would receive even more criticism. So I am saying flat out, Lando will not die. And that's followed by G4, Chewie will not die. Again, we may believe that he is at some point, but I think that he will not be dead at the end of the movie, and we'll be celebrating with him. 04, the last in the 4th row, Rey will not be training Force sensitives. Again, we're going back to The Last Jedi and the Broom Boy. A lot of people speculated that Rey would already be a Jedi Master and she would be training younglings. She'd have her own academy. I think this is a lot of this is just sort of a trolling kind of thing where people are saying, "Oh, she's just so good that they're going to elevate her to this." First of all, I disagree with them. Secondly, I don't think that's going to happen. So this is just me kind of poking back at the people who are trolling and saying that Rey is some sort of super Jedi. That's not the case, and that she will not have her own. She will not be a master Jedi, nor leading her own academy. The last row, B5. The Knights of Ren will reappear and be part of the story. Now, this has already been confirmed in many of the trailers we've seen, but I added to that they will be part of the story, not just showing up in a scene and fighting or be somehow involved in some action, but they'll actually be a part of the story in some manner. The next one, I5, Maz will be working with Lando and or Chewie. I think that's how they'll be connected. It'll be through Maz and Lando, and that's what will tie them in. So I think that faction will be working together, and that they'll be coordinating efforts. In 5, Rey will find out that she's a clone. I fully believe that Rey is a product of Palpatine's contingency plan. I believe that he's been messing around with midichlorians and force sensitives. He's been exploring and trying to find a body to move into, somehow to carry his physical essence or his spiritual essence forward, this idea of eternal life, and that he is trying to develop some sort of vessel that he could move into, and that Rey is a product of that. I believe the mirror scene in The Last Jedi is spot on. I saw where Generation Tech, as well as some others, went into the details of this, and I've bought in wholeheartedly. So I believe that Rey is one of many that look just like her. Which is sort of we've seen the dark Rey in the one trailer, and I think that is either another one of her or it's a vision. I truly hope that it's another clone where she finds out that she's a cloned copy, and that her parent is essentially herself through that genetic DNA replication that Palpatine's been working on to come up with the perfect host. And I think that's going to go a long way in describing and explaining where Rey's power comes from, why she's so strong, and why she has certain memories. So I've bought into that. G5. Luke will directly talk with Ben or Kylo in whichever mode that he is in. I believe that Luke will talk to Kylo and perhaps be part of the redemption piece that tells him he's got to change his ways. So I think that there will be that. And there was also the line in The Last Jedi saying that he would be there. Lastly, in 05, R2-D2 and C-3PO will have significant dialogue and roles in the story. We've already seen C-3PO's line that evokes a good bit of emotion. I think that there's been some criticism that R2 has very, very little to play. I think we'll see him far more involved in this episode. So that's my bingo card. I'll put a link to it in the description here. And I would love to hear what some of your thoughts are. In fact, if you have a bingo card of your own, I would love to see what you think. And this is for fun. Just looking forward and thinking, what are some things you would like to see? So what are some things that you're pretty sure you're going to see? And share those with us. It's another way just to add another game to going to see the movie and seeing how we end up at the end. I'll try to follow this up after we see the movie and it gets out there, and just follow up on how well and how spot on and where I completely missed the boat. So I want to thank you all so much for watching. And I've mentioned this before, we've got Santa's mailbox right behind me here. And if you have any questions or you'd like to see me address a topic, you submit those to me. We'll put them in the mailbox and I'll pull them out and we'll talk about them in a future video. For now, that's all we have. Thanks so much for watching. May the Force be with you, and Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas.